shows are individually owned and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Welcome to the Edventures in Tech podcast, talking the latest tips and trends in educational technology to innovate and engage your students. Here are your hosts, Andrew and Dan.
Back and better, episode 66 of Adventures in Tech. My name is Andrew.
My name is Dan.
We're excited you've joined us with this venture. And of course, as always, if you like our content, please help us out, providing feedback and a rating wherever you download your podcast. We really greatly appreciate your support. So, Dan, we got to do a quick little recap. First, Hudson Valley NICE Conference happened about 2 weeks ago or so. What did you think? It was well attended, very well attended.
Very well. It was nice that it was part of a regional conference day. I think we had well over 200 people attend.
Well over 200.
And I know for both of us, we were very busy that day. I think we were.
I didn't see you. It was weird.
It was, but we each led 4 sessions throughout the day. Great attendance, great feedback, and got a lot of traction moving forward from that event.
Absolutely. All the presenters that day, I know we had corporate sponsors with Apple there and just a whole slew of options that people were able to attend. And that's really kind of choose your own learning. We talk about choose your own adventure. It's choose your own learning at its finest right there with the Hudson Valley NICE Conference. So we thank all those who came out and supported and attended the Hudson Valley NICE Conference. And as we start gearing up, the annual NICE Conference will be taking place starting on Saturday. And again, this will be our second time now up in Verona, New York, where we don't have to travel to Western New York, which almost feels like Canada, in Rochester, but in Verona, New York. And we will be sure to be, we did get confirmation we will be broadcasting in a booth there. So definitely stay tuned. We'll have a lot of great conversations with vendors as well as other educational professionals that are actually attending the annual NICE Conference, I should say. From there, we do have the Ditch Summit, which is going to lead us into our conversation today, and the FETC Conference, Future Educational Technology Conference, that will be coming up in January, hosted again in Orlando. We'll have a lot of details about that in the next coming weeks. We're going to have to bypass weekly wind-up news. Dan, tell us about some of the projects you got going on in classrooms.
Well, there's been a few things. I'm trying to remember the last thing I talked about. Actually, you'll probably be... Well, I guess I'll just start with the virtual reality project that we did with the third grade. They're studying forces in motion, and I was kind of walking through the school building doing VR with another class, and the third grade team had, hey, what can we do? And we planned out something for forces in motion, and I got to play around with some AI features and different platforms to build the VR experiences, and it was very well received.
Absolutely, it definitely was, and that's the thing is, and Class VR, if you're not familiar with it, all built in. We can definitely talk more about that. They have a bunch of new ones. I was just talking with a colleague yesterday about the Colonial America one for 4th grade. So a lot of built-in experiences, and Dan will be able to elaborate on how he used the actual intuitive software to help build these experiences that was relevant to the 3rd graders with the help of AI. We're going to chat a lot about it. I think it's just built into our DNA at this point. But that kind of leads us into our guest today. So without further ado, a friend of the podcast, Matt Miller. Dan and myself are here along with a longtime friend of the podcast. I mean, it's been uber number of years now. The one, the only Matt Miller. Matt, welcome back.
Thank you. Excited to be back. I always love getting to talk with you guys. We always get into such good conversations.
I know. And we are super excited, which is a good reference for Matt, because Matt's always super excited about everything, to have Matt join us once again. And so, Matt, let's kind of recap since, it's been about a year, I think, since the audience has heard you. It's usually right around this time when we get to connect. Yeah. And I wanted to touch base as what are you up to? Like, are you in the classroom? Like, I mean, I'm looking at the walls behind you. They're the good old classic cinder block, right?
So they are.
Tell everybody what you're up to nowadays, Matt.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm still doing a lot of the same stuff, the same ditch that textbook stuff that some folks know me for. I'm still putting out my email newsletter twice a week. still speaking at schools and school districts and conferences and all of that stuff. But on top of all of that, now I am back in the classroom. I'm teaching one class a day. It's a high school Spanish 3 class here at the high school in the school district where I live, where my wife teaches, right down the hall from me, where my 2 kids go to school. So so my day is I show up and I teach Spanish 3 from 8:15 till 9:01, and then I turn right back into Ditch That Textbook Guy. So I'm working on projects. I'm writing a new book right now, so I'm working on that, and getting ready to do the Ditch Summit. That's coming up in December. So like I've got all of these projects kind of like always, but now, it's cool because I get to teach. I see kids every single day. I work with them. I've got the same creative struggle that everybody else does of trying to engage them and trying to help them to learn and everything. But then I also get to do a lot of this cool stuff that gets to support teachers. So that's it in a nutshell right now.
So do you stay in the building until like dismissal?
Sometimes I'm hourly. So
Okay.
I'm only on the clock a little bit before class starts, during class, and then a little bit after for planning. So because I'm hourly, I kind of like clock out, and then I could, take off. But sometimes I nobody else teaches in this classroom. So sometimes I just sit here and just do my work right here in the school.
A new office space, right?
Yes,
there,
that's
right.
right. Yeah,
That's
with
it.
faster internet than I have at home, which is even better. So
That's a win.
Right. Yeah, that's a win-win right there. So you have no issues with that. And you have like if you needed, something like a stapler, right? You're not down in the dungeon like an office space, right? So you don't need a stapler. But
Yeah.
oh, there it is.
there it is.
So, all right. So, Matt, I know you referenced a bunch of points, and I know Dan's going to have some questions, but I wanted to talk. So, we have obviously this book, right? AI for Educators, right?
Yes.
And this came out just about a year ago. We were talking about it, right? And shortly after it came out, and you mentioned that you have a new book coming out. Can you let everybody know about the new book?
Yes, I would love to. It's something that I actually sort of stumbled upon in my own class and realized that it was a thing. So the new book is called AI Literacy in Any Class, because we know everybody's talking about AI literacy right now, and we know that just trying to block and ban AI isn't really accomplishing anything. It's making it more taboo, and it's not really equipping kids for the realities of today and also the promise of the future. So I know lots of folks are looking at how do we incorporate AI literacy into schools and into classrooms. And I think for so many of them, so many teachers, at least, a lot of times they go, oh, that's the job of the tech teacher. That's the tech teacher's job. That's the computer science teacher's job. That's not me. And of course, after I started finding out about some of the things that you could do with AI in the classroom, and I started using some of it in class, I started to realize that every once in a while, I would have these little AI literacy conversations just pop up naturally, organically in the middle of class. Like, for instance, I like to use AI image generators to make pictures that my students can describe. And so when I put those up on the screen, of course, I'll identify to them, this is an AI generated image. And at first I started asking them like, take a look at this picture. And actually, even before I asked them, I put one of those pictures up there, and there was something weird about it. Cause you make images with AI, and they're kind of weird sometimes. There's some weird stuff in them. And so they just sort of like chuckled, and they're kind of like, pointing and snickering and stuff. And I was like, okay, let's stop for a second, point out where's the AI weirdness. And of course, they pointed some of that stuff out, and I was like, okay, so you can obviously see that this is AI generated, right? And at that moment, it dawned on me. I was like, here, I've used this AI generated image. We stopped for just a second to point out the AI weirdness and to have a quick conversation about what's artificial and what's real. And I thought, this was in a Spanish 1 class. This isn't a computer science class.
Right.
And so whenever AI enters into the equation, I found that no matter how you're using it, there's an opportunity to have sort of a reflection, sort of a metacognitive discussion about how it's being used. Is it fair? Is it right? How do you point it out? When should you use it? What can it do? What are the concerns? There's just like all of this stuff. And anybody in just about any grade and any content, area can stop for a second and point to that and have that kind of conversation. So the more that after that, the more that I started to see it, I started to gather examples together. And then when you start brainstorming examples and talking to other people and, their own classes, you start to see, man, there is a ton of potential for the regular classroom teacher to actually equip kids with AI literacy without having to use a ton of AI on their own, and also without needing to have a computer science degree. And so I found that a lot of the conversation is, let's teach kids AI literacy, but nobody seems to answer the question, how? In the confines of a regular classroom in a normal school, how in the world do you do it? And I thought, I have not read that book, so I'm going to try to write it. And that's what I'm working on right now.
That's great. So, and you're just starting the book. So like, do you have a timetable? Are we talking spring?
I'm actually, I'm getting pretty close.
Okay.
I've been writing on it for probably 2 months now or so.
Okay,
I'm almost done with it. If I didn't keep having other big projects pop up, I would have totally been done with it by now. But I was kind of hoping to have it done by December, but now it's probably looking more like January. So it'd be like January 2026, somewhere around there.
Awesome. Well, and of course, anybody who gets your newsletter will definitely be able to, they'll know right away when it's officially out and published.
Yes. And if they don't get it, they can go to ditch.link/join, and then they can get it, and then they'll know when it is. And of course, they'll get the newsletter too, which is great also.
Does the link still work? Getmattstuff.com?
Yeah, that one works too. Yes. It actually all goes to the same place. Yes, totally.
Awesome. All right, Dan, I know you got a question for Matt.
I have a few questions, but one, I'm looking forward to this book, really being able to look at those different examples, because like, as you said, schools will adopt an AI policy, schools will do this, what's allowed or what's not, but for that classroom teacher, for anyone in there, like, what are those moments that you can, because there's so many different things, and, it's just like, beyond all the ethical talks about it and everything, like, where are those points you can bring up, those short those nuggets, I guess, like, let's really look critically at that. So looking forward to that. But I like, I'm excited that we're sitting here talking to you in your classroom, because I just want to, because it seems like you're having a lot of messy thoughts lately as you're in your classroom. And I just thought, like, if you would talk a little bit about, like, your last newsletter post about your messy thoughts on cheating. I found that really interesting.
Thanks. Yeah. And I titled it that. Yeah, that was, like you said, Dan, that was the subject line of the newsletter, my messy thoughts on cheating, because I wanted to just say, like, I haven't worked up my way all through it, but there are some things that aren't quite lining up and just are sitting a little bit wrong with me. And I just wanted to talk about it, So it came from one day in class. I was getting ready to give a quiz. And I've sort of gotten in the practice now of, because I've got this great big classroom. It's almost like a double classroom with a collapsible wall, like an accordion foldable wall in the middle of it. Because they gave me 34 kids in one class. So it's a great big class, and we got lots of desks, and that was the only way to fit it in there. But we've got lots of extra space behind all of the desks. So whenever we take a quiz, I have them all spread out. So they're not right on top of each other, and it's not easy to just, kind of peek over at somebody else's paper. So while my students are all spreading their desks out, and then I say, okay, after you spread your desk out, put your study guides away, put all of your stuff away, take your smartwatches and your smartphones and put them on my desk. And then everybody goes back, and we're getting ready to take the quiz. And I'm just kind of like standing there looking at the class and watching the kids put away their phones and put away their watches and everything on my desk. And I was like, do I really need to do this? Is this necessary? Are there any... And I know there are probably lots of teachers listening to this, and they're like, But I also was like, are there any negative repercussions to doing this? The more that I've thought about this, I realized that there really is a balance on all of this. And I want to just try to strike the right balance, because I know that with those smartphones, and even sometimes with their smartwatches too, there are ways to look things up. And if the temptation is great, and if the barrier, the resistance to doing it is low, like if it's quick and easy to do, as easy as glancing over at somebody else's paper, then the temptation just might be too high. And maybe I'm creating that barrier for the temptation to be able to happen. But then I also thought on the other side of things, when you start to treat kids like they're dishonest, and when you start to treat them like, you think that all they're gonna do is just cheat, and so you're gonna take all of the precautions because they're just cheating cheaters, and you got to treat them that way. That has negative repercussions too. And so if you go all on one side, you get the negative repercussions of the other, and then vice versa. So you got to kind of find that right balance for you. And I realize that some teachers, I think, don't even see that other side of it, of whenever you treat kids as dishonest all the time, it starts to make them feel like they are, even if they aren't. It's like, kids might say, well, if I'm going to be treated like a cheater, but I'm not going to get any of the benefits out of it. I mean, there's sort of a, realism in that like, well, if you're going to call me a cheater, but I'm still going to have to think of things on my own, like grade wise, so I might as well just do it, this is all sort of like the side of us that isn't, like the optimistic, idealistic side, but it's a very real conversation that's happening. And I'm like, I want to develop solid relationships with these kids, and I want there to be a level of trust. And I know some teachers, like, I get it. When you feel like you're being taken advantage of, and when you feel like, you've had kids abuse the system so much and everything, it's easy to feel sort of jaded and cynical and everything. But like, there's a balance when it comes to all of that. Can you see why I called this my mess thoughts?
Yeah.
Because I haven't found an easy answer on it. And I know anybody that's listening to this that has taught for any amount of time could shoot holes in any one of these arguments that I've been bringing up. But it's like, this is the uneasy feeling sitting in the pit of my stomach right now.
You want to know what's mind-blowing for you, Matt?
What's that?
So you talk about that. So in New York State, we had a new law enacted, bell-to-bell restrictions.
Uh-huh.
So we have no devices allowed.
Yeah.
Period.
And I've heard of lots of states that are doing that too. And I think that's one part of it. But you also know, if it's not the cell phones, it's something else.
Oh yeah.
So the cell phones are the most recent thing. And honestly, with some of those cell phone restrictions and those cell phone bans and everything, I've heard so many folks saying, I see kids talking to each other again. Like there are some of these like really positive benefits that are coming out of it. I think it's great, but yeah, you're exactly right. It's very timely when it comes to that, isn't it?
Their heads are up in the hallways while they're walking, and they're not.
Yeah. I was just about to point that out. It's so much safer to walk in the hallways now because you're not getting. But I've also spoken with teachers, and it was a math teacher in particular, and said he was getting ready to start class, and the kids were just talking, and he just like, I'm not starting. He just sat there, and it was like probably about 7 or 8 minutes of class till they realized what was going on. He was like, no, I just want to savor this for a moment.
Yeah.
So there is that, but I mean, it really triggered me when you made me start thinking, when you talked about the messy things of cheating and where we go forward. And it made me really think about, what are we looking at when we're assessing students all over the time, sitting there, are we assessing them always? There's that absolute point where we need that summative assessment. And it's like, you have to show what you know. And like, maybe that's the time those devices are going to be like, frame it. Like, we're just going to put them away, take a break from it, go from there. But like, are we really giving students the opportunity to demonstrate what they know? And I think that's where things get messy, is if we focus on just that one thing, are we losing opportunities for others?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think also to go along with what you were saying, some of it also is like, what's most important.
Mm-hmm.
And whenever the final assessment, whenever the test, whenever, all of that stuff becomes the most important thing, there's pros and cons to that. I've started to find in my Spanish classes that sometimes the day-to-day non-graded, practice and engaging repetitions with things, that's sometimes some of the best stuff. And I don't get points in the grade book for that, but it creates learning. It helps my students make those connections and remember words and get repetitions in the language and everything. And that's fantastic. And but there's no grades to all of that, you know? So it just sort of depends on, what ends up being important to you, and the way that teachers handle their business shows students consciously or subconsciously what is important to them. Right. And whether we realize we're communicating it or not, our actions and the way that we treat students and all that stuff, it really does communicate what's important to us.
I was thinking, when we're talking now that you're back in the classroom and you're seeing classrooms from, across the country, when we talk about best methods for using AI in the classroom, right? And some people are like, well, where do I begin? Because you have all those different levels, right? You have different levels of people, their comfort level, again, ethically, whatever their own personal bias and opinion is on everything. But like when Dan and I are leading PDs and we're just talking with teachers and working, the biggest thing that we say is, it's a co-planner with you as a planning partner, not a replacement. They feel like it's going to be a replacement. And I'm like, no, I said, it's going to make things more efficient for you. It's going to help you differentiate things. Right. And if you have the student use with it, with clear boundaries and, it's a thought partner and not an answer machine. Right. So I thought that was really, because if you're asking for explanations or step-by-step reasoning examples, what if scenarios, whatever it may be, it's your thought partner, and it's not regurgitating an answering machine like thing. Like, I know I'm dating myself because how many people really have an answering machine anymore, but in that regard, but like, it's not just going to give you all that information. It's, it's really making you utilize it for certain components of how to use prompts, which I think is a key component for how you can use AI for that, for real world skills and enhancing PBL and everything like that.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. That's sort of what we hope for it to be. For teachers, it can be, I always say AI is my new teaching assistant. Actually, I have t-shirts maybe you've seen, like a t-shirt that says AI is my new teaching assistant. And so if you use it in that way to help you create things, and I think that's sort of the entry point, and really probably should be the entry point for lots of teachers. But then, like you say, if it is a co-planner and a thought partner and a co-creator and all of that stuff to help you kind of like level up what you do, I think that's great. The hard thing that I think a lot of teachers have when it comes to that is, but what does that actually look like? How do I actually do that? That's the hard thing. And just this week, I just put on an in-person workshop where we focused on student writing when it comes to all of that. And some of the examples that we did in there are some of my favorite examples. So the workshop was called Student Writing in the AI Age. And it was lots of English teachers and social studies teachers. And I had a bunch of online teachers. I actually had about 10 high school students who were on the education pathways like CTE class. Nice. Yeah, so we had 10 high school students. A couple of them were former students of mine, which was really cool. And we just looked at, one of the things we looked at through the whole morning was how can AI support student learning? And so, when it comes to that, how can it be a thought partner? Some of the things that we did, for instance, one of them was, I created little chatbots through School AI that helped students, well, in this case, it was my workshop participants, come up with a topic for a persuasive essay, and then the couple of like main points that they wanted to make in that topic. And so, that ended up being a small slice of that activity where if the teacher decided, do I want to have a little bit of AI assistance doing this, then they could do it. And then that way they, write the instructions for the chatbot. And I even showed the group that morning, like it's pretty easy to write those instructions. You just got to want to know, got to know what you want it to do. And then my little secret, whenever I write the instructions for those chatbots, I have ChatGPT do it for me. Right? You have AI write the instructions for AI. The bots are talking to the bots,
Yeah.
It sounds ridiculous, but it works,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So in that case, I was, I created this chatbot, and then they were kind of like brainstorming with it. And then I was like, okay, let's go to the drafting phase. And so then I was using Brisk Boost. Brisk Teaching has Boost, where you've got the document on one side and a little chatbot on the other side. And the chatbot can read everything that's going on in the document. And so I'm like, okay, we're going to start to draft this persuasive essay in this document. And every so often, just go over to the chatbot and say, what do you think of my first paragraph? How's my thesis sentence? Is there anything that I can improve on? And so we kept going little by little. And the big thing that I kept coming back to, which really, Andrew, underlines everything that you were just saying earlier, is that it's a small slice of instruction. It's a small slice of learning. The only thing was, in this example, we were talking about pre-writing and drafting and revising and feedback and publishing and reflecting. That's like a bunch of it's like a bunch of slices of bread. We just had the whole loaf of bread right there with a whole bunch of little slices. And this is not going to end up being a good analogy, the bread. we try as we go, sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But in this case, it's like this is the big thing that I think teachers miss on all this sometimes. The teacher gets to decide when you insert that little piece of AI instruction or AI support into the instruction. The teacher is still the instructional designer.
Right.
They're still the one designing the lesson from start to finish. And if they decide, okay, in the pre-writing phase, it would be cool to have an AI chatbot kind of like work with them to get that support. In the drafting phase, I don't want AI to have anything to do with it. And I've got my reasons for it. And that's cool because you're the teacher and you're the one deciding it. And that was one of the big things I told those teachers during that workshop was, I'm going to show you how AI can support the writing process in all phases of the writing process. That does not mean that you have to do it this way. You might pick one little piece of that and then do the rest of it without AI. And I think that's one of the big misconceptions I'm finding is that everybody thinks they got to do everything with AI all the time. And it was the same thing when one-to-one devices came in. Oh, we're probably going to have to do everything with the Chromebooks all the time. And it's like, no, nobody ever said that. It's this big assumption. I just saw on TikTok today that some teacher was did some like snarky TikTok post that's like, I'm investing in paper companies because somebody thought that technology was going to be the best way to do education. I'm like, lady, listen, you don't have to use technology to do everything. You also don't have to use paper to do everything. You pick and choose the best stuff. And everybody just wants to do, sorry, you're getting me all like riled up here, but like,
Love it.
Everybody just thinks that it's all or nothing, that everything has to be all or nothing. It's all AI. It's all technology. It's all paper. And it's like, people know.
Balance.
Pick and choose. Be the designer. Okay. Deep breath. I think I'm done.
Oh, I love it.
Sorry, I got all wound up about this.
Well, getting wound up and going through, like, that's one thing, like, with the one-to-one, like, who would ever want to go into a classroom or teach in a classroom or be in a classroom where every kid's sitting in front of a device?
No.
Like, I don't think that was ever the goal, but it just, like, the whole thing that you just went through there, I just flashed me back to like 3 years ago when we first started talking about like AI and how it's going to do this. And now the conversation is like, nope, we have all the parts of it that we can go in and place in. And I think it's coming around to, it's more of a tool than it's going to destroy everything else. The idea that, and you talk about building the chatbots, and just for people listening, and as Matt said, it's not that hard. School AI's platform makes it really easy. As you mentioned, Brisk Boost, starting from your assignments, makes it really easy. For those that don't have that available, Gems and Gemini makes that pretty easy as well. So those become valuable tools. I know for classes that I teach, I put all my assignments and rubrics into the chatbots and then put it along with every assignment I post, just as that guide. Hey, am I doing this right? What else do I need to answer? And it's become very successul.
I think one of the, you mentioned, so I mentioned Boost as one of them. One of the things I love about what Brisk is doing with all of their, with their teacher plans is that Boost, the student activities, the student chatbots, it's totally free in the free plan.
Right.
Of course, whenever you have a tool where it's totally free and you're using it with students and everything, that means that your school district has not signed a DPA with them and everything. You got to be more careful, I think, with personally identifying information. I'll throw that little caveat out there.
Absolutely.
But that being said, with Brisk Teaching, if you use Brisk Boost, the student chatbot is totally free. Like there are no limitations, there's no caps on it and all of that stuff. And yeah, I mean, and like you said, Dan, a lot of these, it's super easy to write the instructions, and if you don't know how, you can get AI, you can just ask AI to help you with it.
Oh yeah, it was funny. It's probably bots talking to bots. I was creating a VR experience for a third grade class. We use Class VR, and there was some stuff that I can gather in their gallery, but I'm like, it wasn't. I mean, it was all upper level physics. We were doing force and motion, and I'm like, oh, but Class VR has an AI image generator. I'm like, I can generate some images that goes along with what the teachers. So I tried doing it, no luck. So I went into ChatGPT and told them I'd like to design, 3D experiences and put it all in for this specific platform, like for Class VR and for ThingLink. Can you help me write the prompts? And it went down and said, here's the prompt you use for Class VR. Here's the prompt you use for ThingLink. Huh? Here's this. And I put it into their AI generators and just a little tweaking here and there, and I was able to create it. It's great.
And you know what? That, I think, is the vision of AI in education right there, Dan. Mm-hmm. Because is it the teacher becoming stupid? No, you were envisioning something that you wanted those kids to do that was right on their level, that fit in exactly what you were trying to teach. You were very much the human teacher in the experience, and you just created, in that little story you just told, mm-hmm. you just created something in a matter of moments that would have taken you a ton of time before.
Right.
And what are teachers saying is the biggest barrier to them doing the cool stuff that they want to be able to do and the stuff that's most impactful?
Time.
It's always time. And so if we're able to do some of that stuff in less time and level up the experience, but still do it exactly the way that students need us to do, it's really empowering the human teacher to do more in less time, or to do the things that they need to do in less time, instead of replacing us, instead of making us stupid. I get the comments on the videos that I put out and the social media posts that I put out. Oh, here's another AI tool that's going to make us stupid. And it's going to make, no, it's like, teaching's hard. Mm-hmm. Teaching is time consuming, and it's getting harder and harder as it goes. And we need every tool at our disposal to keep great teachers in the classroom, to keep giving human instruction to kids. And if we just will equip and amplify those teachers to do the great things that they're doing, like that, I think, is the vision of AI. So Dan, I love that example.
Oh, thanks.
You talk about the efficiency and effectiveness, right, of AI from a teacher standpoint. And I want to reference back, you talked about, you have an article right on your website, 6 ways to prepare students for an AI future.
Yeah.
Right? With the whole, there's a whole infographic as well. Right. Mm-hmm. So, and we'll link to it, for AI skills. But what it made me really think of was, as we're trying to prepare students to be AI literate for their future careers. Right. And we know that literacy, like you were mentioning, it means understand and use and evaluate and create with AI in ethical and effective ways that we just talked about from a teacher standpoint, but also, from a student standpoint, like, you said that there's like 6 pillars, like in my mind, right? And like, so when I was talking about AI awareness and understanding, like when we talk about the future workforce, I was thinking about they need to know how to do that, what AI is and what it isn't, how rapidly it's changing, right? That was a big thing. Prompting as a career skill, I think, is something that we need to, as educators, it's almost like prompting is becoming a core workplace competency like Excel was, right, in the 2000s, right? Because students need to know clear goal setting, iterating on prompts, asking AI how to explain and simplify, like Dan just used his example, redesign, analyze, role play, and giving structures, right? Format, examples, tone for that bias, that we see. We talked about the ethics and, AI responsibility. I think we can all agree there are certain components we need to ensure with that, but also teaching them that, I feel like the workforce, as rapidly as it's changing, the workplace is going to require employees, as we prepare these students, who can question and not just consume. Like verification of things, fact checking, critical thinking, all those skills, because I know we've talked about AI as a productivity and creativity tool, and really, I think the goal, and it can't just start in high school. Like, you have to build AI resilient human skills, because the kids that are young now, like the youngest learners, like AI is going to accelerate. And your article said it, and it was written like in 2018, what, some people were saying what AI was going to do, but AI is going to accelerate the value of uniquely human skills, which all careers are going to require. And we know that we've said students have to develop creative thinking and collaboration and communication and empathy and emotional intelligence, leadership, problem framing, right? Defining what problem needs solving, adaptability, leadership, like all those things are huge. So I really like those 6 skills you said. Like, I see them as 6 pillars of everything that we need to do to kind of prepare these students for careers that don't even exist yet.
Yeah. Yeah. You've thought deeply about this too. I can tell, man. Like,
I was on my soapbox trying to keep up with you, Matt.
it's great. No, I totally agree with you on all of that. And I think one of the common threads through all of that is that what we're not saying is make kids use AI in the classroom so they can learn to be AI ready or whatever it is. What I heard you saying was, you talked about prompting as a skill. And of course, if you're going to prompt, some of that has to do with, directly interacting with AI, but really prompting these days isn't about, like being the AI whisperer and knowing the perfect ways that you're supposed to communicate with ChatGPT to get what you want, because prompting skills, it's shifting a little bit. Knowing how to prompt AI is a little bit less important, because remember, before it used to be like, oh, and make sure that you include an emotional plea, because that's going to make the AI want to give you what you want more. And make sure that you use this prompting framework, or otherwise you won't get, like, that stuff isn't as big of a deal anymore, but communication is.
Right.
Really, prompting is a communication skill. It's all about clear communication and knowing what you're asking for and knowing how to describe it well. And school has been a place to develop your communication skills for a long, long, long time, So there's a guy, Andre Karpathy. I can't remember where. I think he was like one of the early OpenAI guys or something like that. There was this tweet that he put out a long time ago that I still remember. He said, the hottest coding language right now is English. And that has to do with it has to do with computer programming and coding and everything, but it also has to do with the way that we prompt. It's like clear language. And another thing you said, Andrew, was that this doesn't just start in high school, which rubs some people the wrong way, because some people are like, we don't want our young kids to be programming AI, and they're not ready for that and everything. Okay, there are some boundaries and some guidelines as far as using AI for young kids, but honestly, that's not really what we're talking about, because AI literacy can start with the littles the same way that like computational thinking starts with the littles. You have kids coding each other where they're standing on like tiles in a classroom floor, and you say, go forward 2 tiles and turn right, and go right 2 tiles, and where are you? That's computational thinking. It's the same way. It's like knowing, you can say to kindergartners, here's a picture. The computer made this for me. Just something simple like that. That's a very small shift, saying the computer made this. Can you tell that the computer made this and not a person? How can you tell?
I think that's key right there, Matt, because you're teaching students how to use AI for the boring parts, not the thinking parts.
There's that. Yes, exactly. And then there's also the awareness of human created versus AI created. It's like, these are just what you said, Andrew, and then what I said right there. Those are just 2 small examples of just like little shifts in the way that you explain things even for the younger students, it's just starting to get them ready to think about it and realizing that it exists and it's out there. It's not like you have to get them on the computer and teach them for 2 hours a day through AI chatbots. That's not what anybody is saying. And honestly, that could be harmful if the kid doesn't realize that an AI chatbot is actually AI and not a human. So there are definitely those guardrails out there, but oh my goodness, yes, like 100 times yes, what you were just saying, Andrew, like all of these pillars, they show up in all of these different places, and it doesn't mean that we have to get kids on devices and make them talk to AI all the time for them to be AI ready.
And when you level that, just to, piggyback off that, when we talk about career ready, and like you said, there's boundaries that people don't want to, broach and even approach any at all. But, if you think of the youngest learners, K2, they already are using AI as a helper tool, whether it's voice assistance or image sorting, but you teach them identifying patterns or safe tech habits, storytelling, like you mentioned with AI images that can be teacher guided. Right. So they're, they're still in that regard. And then when you level it up to intermediate level at elementary, basic prompting, right? Grades 3 through 5, and maybe identifying the AI generated media that you talk and research with brisk boost, with guardrails, and starting to learn a little bit about ethics so they can wrap their head around it. And as we keep going up, I'm just scaffolding this in my head. You have the middle school, those kids are changing quite quickly and frequently, but structured prompting, right? Role playing things, get them some more of the project-based uses of AI, Canva and Adobe Express, and them doing it themselves. And then you get to your high school students where you have the multi-step, AI workflows and coding tools, simulations, data analysis, depending upon their courses, ethical case studies. I know that always comes up, as we mentioned, and then how those real world tasks are connected to career clusters that you mentioned: CTE, business, literacy, tech ed, health science, et cetera, and so forth. Try to get it through, but scaffold it up so it's not like, you got to go 0 to 120 when you hit 6th grade.
So
Yeah.
I just kind of want to add on to that too. I'm just remembering all those years with Hour of Code with the kindergarten classes, doing the maths, doing the B-bots, doing all that. But you're right, it's computational thinking. And that's the one thing we're talking about, prompting. But, you had mentioned that you were just meeting with a bunch of ELA teachers, and so they're not going to be thinking about computational thinking, but what they should be thinking about is student inquiry and inquiry-based learning, and those are the idea of how to develop questions, or students to develop good questioning techniques to drive inquiry to go forward, whether it's through a design thinking process, building empathy for a project-based learning experience, all of that. So it's those skills that are transferable into that idea. It's like, if we want student inquiry and students driving the instruction and having things more student-centered and having authentic experiences, well, that's where the idea of prompting coding, that's what it is too. It's being able to get the right questioning techniques in order to refine what you're looking for.
Yeah. And really, if you go even broader than that, all the way across the K-12 spectrum, it really goes to solving problems, critical thinking, reasoning. There's like all of those very human skills that have been so important to us in education for so long. And we're going to rely on those even more as AI continues to go. No matter where the technology goes, no matter how smart AI becomes and how capable it becomes and how much it changes the world, we're still going to, as humans, for ourselves, we're still going to have to decide if something is okay. That's critical thinking. We're going to have to try to figure out how to go forward. That's problem solving. We're going to have to try to figure out if something is real or not, and if we should trust it or not, and how it applies to our lives. That's reasoning. Like all of that stuff, all still very much is important, and that's all AI literacy too, right? So so no matter what it is across the board, it's going to apply in some way. And one other thing I've got to say too is that the days of saying, oh, I don't know how this fits, I can't figure out how to, I'm not that kind of like creative teacher that can figure out how to fit all of this in. Like, sorry, but those days are over.
Right.
Because now you've got, you can just hop on your AI tool of choice and say, how could this fit with my class? And it's not to say that they're all great ideas, but you can come up with something. So at some point, it's going to be, if you think that you can't come up with ways to do it, it's because you've decided that you don't want to.
There's the key.
Well, I'm just gonna might get a little off track here, but you said something in there that really just made me remember something, brought up like a little bit of emotion I had at the time, about creativity. And I think that's one of the things that is available now is we can democratize creativity. Like, I would love to be able to go and make a sculpture, or I'd love to do a mural, or I'd love to do this. And I have these visions in the head, and I just don't feel, and sometimes I don't feel like I'm the creative thing, but I can be creative now. So I was leading at a conference recently talking about the future of things. And it was about this, the future is more about designing for variability from the start. So if we can make sure we're designing for everyone around the edges, it's going to bring up everyone in the middle. And the idea that every innovation starts with like one question: who might this leave out? So if we can figure out who we're leaving out. So I gave the example of being able to be creative. And someone said, well, is that you being creative, or is that the AI being creative? And it put something inside me. I'm like, no. I'm like, because it gave me value. I felt as the creative going in, because it was my guidance, my thoughts, my vision that was able to produce something that I felt that I was very proud of. So I've been able to democratize creativity expression for students that didn't have maybe the confidence, or just democratizing anything in that regard, whether it's being able to access something through a translation tool or through a voice to text or all of that. So it just brought up that feeling, and I just felt like talking about it.
No, and I think you're exactly right. And it also shows the balance. And about the balance is a big part of AI literacy that we've got to be willing to talk about, because in your example, if you're doing a creative work, could AI be overused so that it's doing all the work and you're not doing anything and you're just passing it off as your own? Yes. Could you also say, no, I'm not going to touch any of those tools, I'm going to do it all myself? Are there missed opportunities there? Yes. Where do we fall in the middle? And that also, I think, goes to, you were talking about like accessibility features and, speech to text and all of that stuff. Some people are like, oh, that's cheating. Oh, that you have teachers that say that too. Oh, we're not going to let those kids use that stuff. And it's like, no, it's leveling the playing field. But really, you could ask that same question, and that's going to be a key AI literacy that everybody's going to have to wrestle with at some point. Is this leveling the playing field, or is this giving an unfair advantage? And there's kind of like that balance all the way across the board. And for the most part, I would like to lean on the idea of it's leveling the playing field. But also, if you lean too far in that direction, then maybe it starts to. So there's that balance, right? Even in creative work and everything. And I think whenever we hit that balance just right, it helps to bring out parts of us that we weren't able to. And I feel like that's part of the vision of what we'd really like to try to do with this.
All right. Wow. It's always fun talking with Matt, Dan.
It is live from his classroom.
And so that's just mind blowing how he keeps working that. So this is part one, because we had such a great, fruitful conversation with Matt. Part one of our interview with Matt is going to actually wrap up episode 66. As always, thank you for all your support, listening on all those platforms, leaving those reviews. If you have any questions, comments, suggestions, please reach out. Tech hard, work smart, live in adventure.
Find Andrew on all socials at @NicolaTech and Dan at WCSD Tech DR.